Fast funk, thoughts deep, boys steeped in the depths that he sunk. Big stress, depressed in the middle of fall. Sky gray, high late in the thick of it all. I wonder, how long can a human survive just staying alive or carrying the rest of the tribe? Waiting for the day to arrive or struggling dies, and I be doing way, way more than getting by. So why? Cop myself a cup of coffee, sip of water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, cop myself a cup of coffee, sip of water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Eyes realize life is so much more than just living a day. Every day I can sit and reflect and reconnect to myself and know that I've been given. See, giving up is not an option. So when I'm looking at gray skies, I'll be adopting a new way to deal with a test. Lord, relieve me of stress. The ring be looking like we're blessings dropping. And so I cop myself a cup of coffee, sip of water, rain it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Water raining softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, here we go. Yeah, let's do this. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. In times of test, let no harm beset me, oh my Lord, oh my Lord.
Get yourself together before it's too late.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Brian Weinstein. This is Divided We Stand. Well, we're a little bit late, or I'm a little bit late again. I'm sorry about that. I try to do my best. Well, in a certain sense, 5 or 6 hours ago, this would have been early because I intended on 10 o'clock as the start of the show. Going down to the shore, I thought I'd be late. Well, you know what happened. Okay, so first of all, I would like to start off an update with Dave very, very quickly. No new news. I do, however, want to mention that, Dave has been a part of Divided We Stand since we started. We're coming up 2.5 years, perhaps 3. And I know Dave means a lot to all of you, and he means a lot to me. And I'm going to make an analogy of how I feel with this, and that is, quite frankly, I feel like there's like the Super Bowl, but this is not a good thing because we're talking about the political milieu of the country and the world, and he was the guy on my team, and I'm going through the forest now, and I'm using another metaphor, but I'm going there without him, and it's really like he's a soldier with me, and he's there every day, every night, and all of a sudden he's gone. And then, but you have to keep going. But then again, some interesting things will happen, and that I'm very lucky for, and that is my buddies from all over the country and all over the world. So I'd like to introduce tonight my good friends Vegematic from the Vegematic channel, and if you're not familiar with that, check it out. And also T-Bone from Florida. Check out his channel, T-Bone Side of Life. And without any further ado, here are the two gentlemen. to my, I guess, to your right, folks, when you're looking at the screen. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm a little concerned about politics up here this week because we have a mad, crazy extremist guy, sort of Canadian version of Trump, just won the conservative leadership. So we're experiencing Northern MAGA up here, and it's scary as hell. But generally, the general consensus is the guy has no chance against Trudeau, but we're gonna have to see. Everybody said that about Donald Trump too. So God willing, he will be Pierre Poilievre, who we just call PP for short.
Is
And
he willing to cheat, or does he have any connections with Vlad?
He's got connections with the Republican Party, certainly, and he's got every crazy. Well, he was. You remember the trucker protest? He was
Absolutely.
there supporting them. He's an anti-vaxxer. Just overall crazy guy. He criticized Trudeau because we all got money during the pandemic shutdown, and he said, "Oh, his government wouldn't have given any of that money away." So yes, starve. Cutting back on pensions, all kinds of stuff, just the typical right-wing garbage that you guys have experienced. And see it sort of slithering over the border is kind of distressing, but fascism is growing all over the world, and we've just got to keep fighting, you know?
And Canada, of course, is the one area we look to, whether in reality or in Hollywood or with HBO. It seems to be the country with the outlet of the great bastion of democracy, but who knows? And yeah, that's frightening, Veg. Very, very frightening. How about you, T-Bone? What's happening down in the Gator State?
Well, let's just say the Gators are not on meth. They've reduced themselves down to bath salts. And DeSantis, well, that's a story within itself. I mean, like I said earlier, if you got a little bit too much melanin in your skin, he's got a flight plan for you. He's just not going to inform where he's going to send you. Just call it for what it is. But I'm really digging this. What did you call him, Veg? PP?
Yeah.
Is that the
Pierre?
Yeah,
Poilievre, which is a French, so my pronunciation may not be perfect, but yeah, everybody that dislikes him just calls him PP. So maybe it'll
PP.
stick.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. PP. Yeah.
I saw a disturbing video from your neighboring state, T-Bone, the great
Which
state
state
of
is that?
Alabama. And we do have quite a few members from Alabama. So it's Melissa Green, and Melissa got a lot of her friends to join Divided We Stand on Facebook. And we appreciate that. And we know there are wonderful liberals in Alabama. But I was watching this Russians video. It was a Russian guy who lives in the United States. He actually lives near Compton, California, and he's into like the ghetto scene and all. And he has a very, very popular channel in Russia because people in Russia love to see what's going on in Compton and the rap going on with the rap music. And he's just an interesting guy. So he goes down to Alabama. And you know me, I'm an animal rights guy. I don't eat meat and whatnot. So I'm watching his video, and it's nice. They're showing gators as they go through the swampland in Alabama. And then I see a gator without an eye, and then all of a sudden the guy who's taking him on the tour says, "Oh, by the way, yeah, in Florida, some people, they just go out into the swamps there, and just for fun they shoot the gators and torment them." And I thought, like, who
I
the
think
fuck?
they do that on a daily basis here and all.
I imagine it does happen in Florida too, I guess.
Well, for some reason, every year during the summertime, and I do not recommend this to anyone to come down here and start hunting pythons. In the Florida heat, in the Everglades, hunting pythons, there's like a $10,000 reward. That don't even cover the med flight when they fly you out of the swamps. Okay? Don't do it. It's not worth it. But yeah, they'll go down there. It's like, oh, there's thousands and thousands of pythons here. Yeah, they only come out with probably maybe 10 to 30 pythons, but they mid-flight more people out of there than what it's worth. So that's just a advertisement there of saying, don't come here thinking during midsummer time you're going hunting pythons in the Everglades. Okay, it's just no.
Yeah, those pythons. I mean, they're absolutely huge, and that's a big problem anyway. I mean, this isn't our show tonight, but the topic. But I can see where that. I mean, I guess on two angles. Number one, you have to get the pythons out of there, but the gators, just going out there and shooting it for their eyes. If you're going to put something like that out, put it out. Shoot right, for Christ's sake. Yeah, I don't know if any of you ever saw this movie called Breaker Moran, which is based on a true story of Harry Morant. It was actually, Harry Morant during the Boer War in England, and they had to basically trump up some charges on him to end this war, something he didn't do, and they never forgot the end of it. And it had something to do with the Lord Kitchener, so that has something to do with Canada, I guess. But long story short, he was killed. They had him sitting out in a seat, and one of his buddies was killed, and he shouldn't have been shot, but he was. And the last thing he said was, don't miss, you bloody bastards. I don't want this to be messy. And as much as that might sound funny, I mean, I'm not big on hunting. Although, look, if people eat, they basically have an assassin to do the work for them. But my point is, if you're going to kill an animal, don't make it suffer. And, so if you go out there in the swamps and then you just try to take some eyes out, I mean, it's horrific. It is. Why can't they leave animals alone instead of tormenting them? It's,
Some people are just cruel, Brian, and the cruelty is the point. It's hard for people like us to understand. And I'm also, I don't eat meat. I'm a vegan, and I cannot, for the life of me, understand how anybody could work in a slaughterhouse, for instance, and it's just beyond me. And the idea of cruelty. Well, if you're not cruel by nature, it's almost impossible to understand cruelty. I don't want to see anything suffer. I don't want to see any animals suffer. I'll take bugs outside and let them go instead of squishing them.
But I'm saying,
it's just I think it's just a different mindset.
Well, it's
a lot of people
so
that
ugly.
were brought up in the country are taught that animals don't feel anything, that they're just stupid,
or they seem to think because it's an alligator, this vicious looking thing, that you can just take it out. It's abominable. It's just abominable. And I know, look, I know most people in Alabama don't do that, and they find it disgusting. But I can't wrap my head around it.
It's not just an Alabama thing. It's not just an Alabama thing. I mean, they do it down here too. Now, you talking to a person as an adolescent that was pretty much raised on a farm and with animals and all. Yeah, that was some sad times. But cruelty to animals, I still don't find it to this day understanding it. But going beyond the animals, it seems like it's just cruelty in nature itself. I mean, even amongst us here in America. Sorry, Veg, you don't get the full experience of that, but you're not missing anything. That's for damn sure. But cruelty seems to be a worldwide, global thing these days, and also
it's I saw something. I posted this on Facebook. Again, I didn't mean to get into this and to get people upset. What I thought was especially cruel. Of course, we know that the Ukrainians are, they're having this very, very successful counteroffensive, which is fantastic. So, one thing I really like about the current day Ukrainians and what they're doing is their respect for animals. I mean, they are doing everything to protect the animals in addition to the people. They're not, holding back and saying, just the people. No, they've done everything for people, trying to find homes for their cats and dogs or for whatever animal you have. So the Ukrainians, and you'll have to forgive me for bringing this up, but the Ukrainians found this dog. He wasn't in good shape. The Russians had scraped a Z onto its snout, and it was having a tough time. And of course, luckily, because they have compassion for the animal, they're taking care of it.
What sites are you going to and finding this?
No, this was right from. I think it was from Yahoo. It was one of the major stories that come. These aren't just some kind of some strange YouTube site. No, these are coming from your regular media networks. This is what's going on, and I think. Well, I do say the media does put these things out there because they know that, most people enjoy dogs, and the comfort that people from Ukraine are giving these animals just goes to show you, despite all this crazy shit, you see just this incredible display of empathy and compassion for things, and it's quite noble because these are noble animals.
I just wonder how sick you got to be of a human being to do a Z on the nose of an animal.
Well, here's my point. They say that, for example, that most kids who do that kind of thing end up being violent. They mention, for example, a lot of the rapes that are going on. They would mention one woman who was raped. She was 57. And she was trying to save her daughter from being raped. They ended up killing her daughter. But a soldier half her age raped her, and he said to her before he started, she said, how could you do this? Would you do this? I mean, imagine, I'm the age of your mother. Would you want this to happen to your mother? Didn't say anything, did what he did, and she survived. And to think that one would have to live with the thought of all that, and then just the behavior from that type of person, it's just ghastly. I don't know. I think that this is why I feel like I'm melting in a certain sense, ladies and gentlemen. And I know you guys are really no different. I mean, especially in the sense of veg, because you're from Canada. I wouldn't expect you to have that, feeling when you see T-Bone and I talking about Cannon or Trump. I mean, you're from Canada, but you feel it just as much, and that's it's an incredible display. I mean, where you have somebody that, you get it. I wouldn't expect every Canadian to feel it the same way we are.
A lot of us do. A lot of us really do. And I think that Canadians living right along the border, I mean, Canada is shared this 3,000-mile border with America for years and years, and peacefully. And to see it all go crazy, I mean, it's creeping over here too. It's not just an American phenomenon. This is a political phenomenon that's going on in many, many countries.
Right.
And it seems like Trump has almost made it acceptable. That kind of extremism, that kind of things that people would have never dared speak a few years ago. Well, Trump has sort of enabled them and go, oh, I can be a racist. I can say all these horrible things. I can be a misogynist. And in the name of Jesus too. We've got it up here too. I think it hasn't gone quite as far yet, but the possibility is definitely there. I think our political system being a little bit different is a little bit harder for them to manipulate. So I think we're going to I think we're going to be okay up here, but honestly, I don't know. And having spent so much of my life in the States before all this crap happened, and it used to be so easy for me to cross the border, and I didn't even need a passport. I would go and cross the border to Port Huron all the time from London. It was an hour's drive and a nice bay there, and you could sit and watch the boats and everything. And now it's such a rigmarole that I just couldn't be bothered. I just, you didn't
back
even
to us, Veg. Come on back to us. We send you a warm welcome to come on back. Really, really come right into where the insanity truly is. Come on back, Veg. We miss you.
Well,
I would love to visit the States. It's difficult in my current situation right now. I have some mobility issues, and I am not able to travel the way that I used to be. So I do miss a lot of my friends down there, though, and I miss.
You'll be fine, Veg. Just clean out the bong water, put some fresh in. Come on down. Come on down. We welcome you. You know, try some of our American bourbon. You'll forget about Canada. You'll forget about the armpit altogether.
Well, Jim, I didn't mean to torment you with the tormenting of animals, but it was just something that came up, and it's part of this. I guess this general malaise that I feel because I don't see anything good happening from a political standpoint. As Veg, you were mentioning that this is something that is certainly not isolated in the United States, and just to hear any kind of thought of it happening in Canada, you know, it just makes things difficult. But
horrifying.
It's right. It's
horrifying.
It's seemingly unheard of to hear it come out of Canada. So when you say that, I mean it's tough. No, I mean, again, I wouldn't expect anything to happen. I don't know enough about Canadian politics as you would.
They've got it better there because they got provinces. We're dealing with states. They got provinces.
Right,
so
although I know at times it's been
there.
tough there, like with the Quebecois or whatever that party was. From time to time, it's almost like Scotland and England and that kind of thing.
The separatist thing. What's that? The Quebec wanted to separate. A large percentage of Quebecers wanted to separate from Canada and make Quebec a nation. That's pretty much died out now. They brought in all kinds of. You see, growing up in Quebec, I spoke English, and my parents spoke English, and a lot of people spoke English that lived in Montreal, and they kept bringing in laws. Like there's a law in Quebec that you can't post a sign in front of your business in English. It has to be in French, and it's this use of language as a political thing instead of communication. It drives me crazy. Fascism is the end result of capitalism. Hate to say this, but I saw this in the 80s. Well, I don't know. Marxism is probably not much better, but...
Right, there aren't many good systems out there.
I think social democracy is probably the best system, like a European-style social democracy like they have in Germany.
I agree.
That seems to work the best as far as eliminating poverty and extremes of wealth inequality and everything. But I can't see, I'm pretty far on the left, even for a Canadian. So for an American, I'm probably, so far left but I'm still not a communist. I don't believe, I believe in social democracy, and capitalism, I believe, should have limits placed on it. There's only...
Come on to America. You'll be a communist within seconds here.
Well, if I think...
I almost guarantee you that one.
I always try to come about it from a different perspective, and I'm not saying this in any kind of pompous way. My perspective has always been, in general, that there are other forces. Just the idea through evolution, we have this this selfish thing called the human being, and then when you have more people, it tends to lead to this. So, for example, when you have a quote unquote communist country, really, you look at people like Stalin, it becomes a statist state. It acts as one big corporation and it gets brutal. And I can't say that population's everything. Pardon me?
Speaking of communists and everything, why don't we give us the full Cannon effect here, if you would? I know you've been itching to do this,
right? So, and that's for everybody.
Scratch that itch, buddy.
Well, I did email my two buddies here during the week. I felt this was going to go this way with Cannon. For example, when you're watching the news programs, these really wonderful attorneys, prosecuting attorneys like Neil Katyal, Andrew Weissman, they had essentially said she embarrassed herself, so the DOJ basically cornered her, and the only way that she could go against them if she just simply, as we were talking about last week, took like the Federalist Society policy, like We're doing this because we have an agenda, and we're going to do whatever we're going to do. And that's exactly, essentially, what she did. Now, that worries me.
I was stunned, though, not to mean to cut you off here. I was stunned at how young she was when she joined the Federalist Society.
She's like only 41 now.
So that would put her like 23, 24 when she joined? She was born in 81.
I think it was 2003 when she was doing something involved with the court. So don't forget, like, as an example, when you have auditors, they'll usually get these young accounting students out of college when they're 22 or 23, and they put them out there to do their work, and they groom these people. And, first of all, not to say that the fact that she's Cuban matters, but, you get a lot of right-wing Cubans in, and you would know this, T, because it's in southern Miami, southern Florida, Miami. These are people who came over. And they've taken a real right-wing view of things. So, they're kind of like, and I've seen this with Russian immigrants, because I remember in the 80s, I never forget, I met a very, very nice friend of mine, until he died, a wonderful guy. He was a dentist during World War II in Mongolia. He was like, he was a captain in the army, but he was a dentist. And he said to me out of nowhere, this is when Reagan was first elected, because we're talking 1982, 83. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, he says, he said in Russian, he said, I want to, liquidate the Democratic Party. And I'm thinking, why would somebody who came out of the Soviet Union, somebody who left there out of, essentially statism and an autocratic communist government to come here to get some type of freedom, and then he says something like that. It comes right out of the Stalin mold. And I was warned about this, that even though they're searching for freedom, they still grew up in this idea of strong ruler. We need that. It's like 1991 in Russia. They had the opportunity with Gorbachev, and what goes on, they can't handle the freedom, and then they want that strong ruler. So you have people who come from overseas, they come here, and then once they get here, they still have this pattern of thought as though, we need to have this and this and this and this, and you ignore what you defend.
So you're saying that his vision was to liquidate the
Yes, he
Democratic
literally said,
Party?
I think we should liquidate the Democratic Party, because at the time, we're talking like 82, 83. Reagan was calling Russia the evil empire, and the Democrats didn't want all that vitriolic, emotionalism in politics.
Right.
You're baiting a country with 12,000 nuclear weapons.
Right.
And there was this type of stasis. We've never had a good situation, or never had a good situation with the Soviet Union nor with Russia. And one could argue, because I know somebody out there is going to say this, they have never been on our soil, but we had 5,000 National Guard on one end of the country and 8,000 National Guard on another end. Some were in, I guess, Murmansk during World War I. Wilson sent essentially 13,000 National Guard from Michigan, and a lot of them died. Some lived, and they had to stay there. So they've always said, look at our perspective. You invaded us. And I get that. I do get that. From a Russian perspective, they would say, look at you. Why wouldn't we have something against you? You fought against the Red Army back in 1918 until 1920. And then, of course, again, many of these people died. Their graves are up in northern Russia. And again, they were on both sides of Russia. The problem with Wilson was he thought that 13,000 would have been enough. And, of course, the ones who did survive, they became, part of Soviet society. And who knows whatever the hell happened with their family. But, again, it wasn't enough. But the point is that the Russians would say, you're the ones who got involved on our territory. You don't, and he said that most Americans don't know that, and that's what I think I have going for me, that most don't know that, and that is true. However, getting back to Reagan, he would call them the evil empire, and the Democrats just didn't want that kind of, it's not propaganda, but it's almost as if you are instigating something just through your words.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very good. So at the time, it looked like the Republicans were tough on Russia, and if you were a Russian emigre, the Democrats were weak, and they feared that if you had this weakness, that somehow Brezhnev was going to come over here and just wipe out this country because the Democrats were weak. And again, this is coming from emigres who lived within this, metaphorically speaking, this box of totalitarianism, where as much as they didn't like what was going on, they didn't have political freedom or expression, they had a sense of power, what you must do. So let's liquidate the Democratic. You know nothing about the Democratic Party, but you're going to make this statement based on your life in Russia since 1910.
The gentleman that said this,
great guy though. He was a wonderful man. He was a wonderful, wonderful man.
but he's no longer around.
No, he died, I think, in 1990. He served in World War II as a dentist in Mongolia. He was probably born somewhere around 1910. Could not serve in World War I. I met his grandson. I'm still friends with his grandson. And we had these discussions. And he was, like many Russian emigres, you have to be tough with these people. And in certain ways,
how's his grandson, though? I mean, does his grandson share the same beliefs? Or just going to be quite different?
Quite frankly, he grew up until in Soviet Russia until he was around 11 or 12. He had a tough upbringing. His father left. Good guy. He's basically, he likes to smoke a lot of pot, and he likes listening to a lot of good music. And when I would talk with his grandfather, he was like 17 at the time. Good guy. But he didn't want to get involved with it. But he knew what it was like growing up in Russia. But he didn't.
To the States, comrade, you love our Americanized weed and our Led Zeppelin.
I think that's a good thing, too, gentlemen, to point out that even though the older ones, I'm talking the ones over 60 years of age who come over, and this doesn't mean just the Soviet Union.
No.
I think you have to look to the future and say, okay, what are their kids going to be like? What are their grandchildren? And they'll be Americanized, and they'll get it. Like even Max Boot, as much as he's kind of a conservative, he was from Russia, but he was young enough when he came over here, and I think he studied at Harvard and all. He gets that that crap that's going on with the Republican Party, and you see that kind of, I think just time here kind of erodes and mitigates that type of thinking, and I can't be mad at these people. This is how they grew up. Again, this is that determinism. It's just like somebody from France speaking French. This person grew up this way. My problem now is the people that are living here, and what's coming out here is, as Veg was saying, this is something that you see from other countries, and it's frightening, and it's going to lead us into what I did want to kind of talk about with you guys tonight. I'm going to throw you guys in here, gentlemen. Sorry for this. I'm taking a little bit of time with this, but I'm going to put you in here so everybody can kind of see.
To the deep end this evening. We don't even get to shallow end of this.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, and I did send this article to both Veg and T-Bone about 30 minutes before the show, so it wasn't too long that they got this. We haven't really even gone through this with a fine-tooth comb, but essentially this is from the New York Times. This is David Leonhardt, and he wrote just a wonderful, wonderful article. It's very, very short. Let me see if I can throw myself in here. Very, very short, but it essentially talks about the impending problem of this country in the future, and he looks at it from two different angles. Let's see if I can get this back in here. Okay, and
Brian, why don't you move yourself down over to
low
the
here?
other side?
All right.
So
I can't see this. I've got so many things here. Actually, You wouldn't even know what's going on here with me here. But I will do that. I think that's...
You put your fiddling when you get your riddling, okay?
Okay. So he mentions that he sees two threats, and I'm going to try to blow this up for everybody, okay? Now, of course, the first threat is the Republican Party, but more specifically, their inability to accept an election, which they probably know, most of them, not all, but most of them know that this was a legitimate election. This gets into the idea that they see America changing, and that they can't allow this to happen. So you've got 100 people who have been they've won their primaries, and these are people who just think Trump won, or at least will say it. So it doesn't really matter. We just know that that's what they're saying. And the second thing has to do with the fact with the courts, which I was talking about last show, and that is the infiltration of the Republican Party in the courts. And this will lead to the discussion of Cannon and what had happened with the appeal, that will be occurring with the 11th Circuit Court. And essentially, what he's saying here is that you're going to have a majority of people who think one way, and then you have a contrarian minority which is going to have its way in the courts. And Mueller and the DOJ is finding this out now. And let me just add this, because I want to add this son of a bitch. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a guy named Don Bolduc. Now, he won his primary in New Hampshire.
Yes.
I'll show his face because he wants to show that he's a big war hero here. But this guy was number one with conspiracy theories that the Democrats didn't win the election, Biden didn't win, it was rigged. 2 fucking days after he won the primary. 2 days, gentlemen, after he won, he turns on a dime, does a 180, and says now he admits that it was fair. Now, of course, he's doing this because he wants to
watch
pick
that
up the
Fox interview of him?
No, I didn't. That? So you'll have to tell us about that, because he's a real son of a bitch, this guy.
Let me put it this way. I mispronounce words. I stutter at times. He made me look good. I mean, he was put on the spot to answer that about the election, and it's hilarious. You've got to find that and look.
I'm not so sure I'm going to be laughing, because this is what scares me. Is this is exactly what they're going to do?
Sense of humor in it. I mean, really, or the anxiety is going to eat you alive. But you got to find a little bit of humor. But the whole disturbing thing about it is when it comes for them putting themselves into power here, they will do that every time and turn on. It's like we're not noticing this, but other people just got to the point they don't care anymore. They rather hear this, and that's what personally bothers me. It's like it's on display every damn day here. I don't get it. I really don't. But yeah, his interview on Fox, priceless. You get to see him just do that 180 right in front of everybody. It's like, you got to be kidding. Nobody noticed this? And
he's just searching for, enough votes, a few percentages that he will need. Yeah. Because if you notice, most of these elections are really tight. I mean, you've got, Ryan and that son of a bitch from Ohio, Vance, J.D. Vance. It looks like Vance is up now. And see, that's what I can't stand about Ohio. I live there.
I thought Vance disappeared.
He's back. You know why he's back? Gentlemen, did you see that Trump, I think he's speaking there now, like right now or last night, he's there trying, Trump's doing his tour. This is like, the Rolling Stones. He's doing his tour. And, he picks up votes.
Trump's other weekend, I took some notes and everything, and playing the favorites out, calling COVID China dust now. FBI, they're nothing but monsters and vicious people. Yeah, like we haven't heard that one. How about Biden? The red light deal with Biden. Yeah, that's the light of the devil. And I'm thinking, wait, hold on. Red, ain't that the color of y'all's party there? And then called Joe Manchin pretty much a dog. So yeah, he's playing the favorites. Everything from Hunter's laptop all the way down to Hillary's emails.
I've yet to actually see the laptop anywhere. Have you seen the laptop? They keep talking about the laptop. Where the fuck is it?
That's the thing. You got it. Exactly. Where is it? Show us. Come on. Don't give us the Mike Lindell experience here, okay?
How is Hunter Biden's laptop relevant in any way?
Right.
He doesn't
that's
have any
true.
position in the White House. He's not like Trump's kids that all had cabinet positions. So from what I understand, is on his laptop. They have him smoking dope or something, or frolicking nude. I don't know. But
like
it's just another
political office.
It's whataboutism, right? It's anything they can grab onto to say, what about this and what about that, and
Right.
it's
Whataboutism.
Right,
It's
which is very effective with people who see things in the type of eyes that accept one sentence.
Yeah.
Democrats are going to raise our prices. Democrats are going to allow immigrants to come. Now, that's another thing that's going to have to be solved. The border thing.
And socialism has come to
And
a
socialism.
border near you.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's so simple for them just to say that. And I
Right.
guess what we're saying is that if that in fact is what they do, and if it in fact is effective, then that means that a very large number of Americans are really ignorant. And ignorance, again, is violence. That I don't know how you get around that.
I thought it was bliss. Now it's violence. Damn.
No, ignorance is violence. I mean, I don't even know why anybody would say ignorance is bliss, because the only thing I've seen, just looking at people who don't know what they're doing, they don't know the traffic laws. They don't. It's like a little kid, tormenting an animal. They don't know the difference. It never leads to anything good. The more ignorant somebody gets, now that doesn't mean every ignorant person does a mean thing, but it can get pretty ugly.
They might not know it, but they're the ones that be the first to talk about family values, okay? I get a kick out of that one. We knew about family values, it's like, well, all right, well, explain it. Tell us about these morals and family values and all. And then next thing you know, we're heading down the Trump road here. That's the total opposite. There's your one.
They've co-opted God. They've co-opted Jesus. I don't know how much more else you can co-opt. I mean, I would be, now again, I'm an atheist, but many of you who are listening are Christians, and that's fine. That's not a big deal. But it's just as though that they've just almost destroyed, at least in my opinion, the idea of Christianity right now in the United States. These are evil people.
Yeah, it has, and I am a marginal Christian, I suppose, but I would be embarrassed to call myself a Christian, just because that would associate me with these right-wing crazies that have all these extreme views and everything. None of them probably know anything about the Bible. I think atheists generally know more about the Bible than some of these right-wing evangelical types, or the Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert types. I don't think they've ever read the Bible, because how could they have created this counterfeit Christianity? This sort of I can't even describe the amount of the opposite of anything that Jesus taught, whether you believe Jesus existed or not. Certainly, as a philosopher, they are diametrically opposed to everything Jesus taught. So how can they?
They're the ones saying. They're the ones saying that they're the good Christian. Those are the ones that really concern me. They'll talk about Jesus, but they're worried about Zeus getting over the border. Yeah, that's the big Christian of it.
It's funny you guys met, and I'm going to try to find this. Are you familiar with the video of Ted Cruz recently departing his plane?
Okay, our silence is going
wait,
here.
I think I did.
What?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to show you this if I can dig it up. I do have.
Where did you find it?
Still, I found it on Twitter, but it's out there.
Okay.
Let me see if I can dig it while we're talking here. I can use the search.
I got my curiosity up on that.
The search is pretty good on YouTube. Here it is. Right.
Some
So
good
basically,
now and then.
yeah, I have to see it first. So I think what I'll do is I'll just put it on and let everybody look for themselves, and then we'll discuss it when we get back on this. So this is. Ooh, shit! What is this? Oh Christ! Anyway, let me get that out of there. Okay, this is Ted Cruz. I'm going to put up the volume in a second and play it. He's on he's getting off the plane, and somebody's going to dress Uvalde. Okay, and at first Cruz thinks this guy's on his side. Then of course we find out that the guy was great. He's like he's not like the Good Liars guy, but he's great. This guy was really good. I'm going to make this bigger. Hopefully it's loud enough. So we'll see what happens. Here we go.
Hey, we're in Houston. I thought we were going to Cancun.
That would be unfortunate. What dear?
Clinton, disarm doors for arrival. Cross check. Stand by for all calls.
Senator, thank you for everything you've done since Uvalde. Thank you for everything you've done since Uvalde. All those podcast episodes must have raised a lot of money for you.
Just yesterday, I tried to pass the most significant school safety bill that's ever passed.
Why did you vote against
Your
the
party
gun bill?
objected to it.
You tried to pass it? What work were you doing? How did you have time when you were recording a shit ton of podcast episodes?
You should ask why the Democrats objected to doubling the number
You
of
should
police
ask why you don't know how to do your
officers
job
in
without
schools,
referring
or why
to
they
other
object to
politicians.
15,000 new mental health.
You should
health
fix your
officials in
tie
schools.
too, in your collar.
Listen to the man.
Let's let him fly in peace. I'm fine. When children can get buried in peace, then we
Do
can
you know
live
the
it.
facts at all, or are you just going to engage with
No, I know the facts. Do you know any of the names of the Uvalde victims?
I do, and ask why Chris Murphy objected and stopped the biggest school safety bill that's
So
ever
you didn't
passed
list any of their
yesterday.
names, but you again.
But you don't know.
turned
You don't
to
care
a
about the
Democrat.
facts. You're a partisan. That's okay.
You're not a partisan.
All right, so let me get back to the group here. Yeah, so it's ironic. He can't even name. He says, "Yeah, I know." He can't even name one of the one individual who was killed.
I have to admire, he always goes for the classics of blaming the Democrats. The first thing to bail his ass out. That's what I found funny. It's like, dude, you're clueless. You got to be kidding me.
Right.
God damn.
I mean, this guy, first of all, we know he's a liar. He's a professional liar. And just from this scene, you see he's going to lie, and he says, "Of course I do," or "Of course I know." He doesn't. If he really did, he would have just come right out and said, "John Smith," and it would have been better if he just would have just not lied and said, "I don't know their names. Is that important?" or something like that. He couldn't do that. He had to lie. And he was really eating it up in the beginning, because if you remember, the guy said, "I want to thank you for your work with Uvalde," and he's all big and happy about it. And then all of a sudden, once it goes in another direction, the floor falls out below him.
I mean, old Ted had the look on his face like he just smelt a freaking fart up in the cabin. He knew and immediately went for the Democrats right then and there. Between him and Lindsey Graham, they're running neck and neck on bullshit right there. Just call it for what it is. I mean, my God.
What do you think, Veg, from looking at that? You're not surprised, obviously. And he remember he's one of yours too, because he was born in Canada.
But we got rid of him a long time ago. Don't blame Canada for please. Okay. Yeah, him and Lindsey Graham. Yeah. Although what I've noticed now is that the Republicans seem to be backing off from their anti-abortion things, because I saw Marjorie Taylor Greene, Trailer Queen. Sorry, I saw her talking and saying, "Oh, well, the Democrats are saying we're going to block access to abortion." Nobody said that. We're not going to do that. And I was going, wait a minute. This is one of the most extreme people in Congress, and she's saying, "Oh no, it's going to be fine. Women will still have access to abortion. Don't listen to the Democrats." And they're walking stuff back now. So I think what's happening is they're really frightened. And I think what's going to happen is that women are going to come out in the midterms. And I really have this feeling that the Democrats are going to win both Congress and the Senate. I think Congress a little bit harder. But I mean, of course, there's gerrymandering and everything. But I think
and again, we don't forget the governors. Again, we're dealing with people, getting back to the article, who might be willing to overturn, because we keep thinking about a presidential election. They just may want to overturn congressional, and like as you say, it's already gerrymandered as it is. But this is the kind of crap they're going to pull here.
Hey,
and
don't forget now, Secretary of States. If anybody's paying attention, you better pay attention to those. They are very important. Secretary of States, and who's running for them, and who's putting them up there, and who's putting the funding behind it. That's
and as you correctly said, Veg, as you mentioned, women are upset, and that's a really good thing. That's obviously a really, really good thing. And even young people now might, especially after money coming their way for student loans. But going back to, I guess, what T-Bone was talking about in the beginning of the show with what's going on with the immigration issue, that seems to be the way they're going to try to balance it out, because that is, a third rail topic, immigration, because most people kind of want the immigration thing handled. The question is, how are the Democrats going to handle this problem? Because right now they're up to 8,000 a day coming over, and it could be 9,000. They're going to have to take care of that, because this was a problem in 2016. And I think Biden will do something. Eventually, something will have to happen, because I think they said when the number hits 9,000, I don't know, there's some type of tripwire at 9,000. But it is a big problem. And if they use that, now you're starting to compare scars. You have the abortion thing, and then you have the immigration thing, and you just don't know where they're going to go with it. They've got to, meaning the Democrats have got to deal somehow with immigration in some type of way or form.
We need some more dark Brandon, and we need it now.
Yeah, well, he solved the rail crisis. We have 30 to 40% of goods traveling on rails, and if we didn't have that solved, we would have had inflation going. And by the way, I hope you guys will agree with me that I think the Republicans were actually hoping that the rail strike was going to continue, or was going to start, so to speak. Sure. They wanted a failure.
It would have been a good distraction for them, but anybody, well, you know what? Come to think of it, yeah, that'd be part of their cruelty plan right there. So
they wanted the gas prices higher. That's like talked about. Now that it went down, you didn't hear them saying, "Well, yeah, the gas prices are down," And it looks like Trump. Look, right after that meeting with Trump, if you remember, at the golf course when they had that LIV thing with the Saudis.
Oh, yeah.
You all remember that, right? Veg,
yeah.
T-Bone? Not more than a day or two after, Putin's pushing. Putin. I think actually Putin. I don't think it wasn't even Putin. I don't think Putin really cared what Saudi Arabia was going to do. But Saudi Arabia decreased their output by 100,000 barrels a day. And we know what kind of forces, that's just simple supply and demand, and that's going to. So, Biden, can't win for losing, or lose for winning, or win for losing, whatever that saying is. They're throwing darts at him from every goddamn direction. And luckily, Biden's taking care of business, but he's going to have to take care of this immigration thing, because if they do use this, I don't know, and again, and then you add to it all the illegal stuff. And remember, every single case of voter fraud was a Republican, except for one. There was one Democrat, but they say he was testing it just to see if it was this or that, and he may have been, I don't know. You know what? I don't want to say what the Republicans may have done with this guy, but in general, every case but one of voter fraud was a Republican, and we still don't know. It could have been more. Oh, look at the kitty! It could have been more in these red counties.
I kept looking at the screen, and I was like, man, that's just doing a lot of fidgeting over there. And I seen something bushy, and I was afraid to say anything. I was like, you know what? It might just be me. So no, that is a cat.
It's my cat, Gandhi.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I saw something furry moving around there. I was like, I don't know what kind of fetish thing you're into, and I wasn't going to bring it up. All right.
Well, we certainly don't mind animals on our show, of course. I mean, I'm almost at the point.
A fetish thing. I was like, wait, the stops are out this evening.
I've even said this. I know I'm going to go in this little philosophical tangent here, but I think if we had aliens that invaded us, who were a lot smarter than we were and a lot more powerful, and they just started using us as cattle, I mean, I wouldn't want that to happen to me or anybody else, but for all these assholes, who seem to think that, the human beings are the end all of this planet, and part of that is a religious thing, the Judeo-Christian idea of, dominion over a planet. I'd almost want us to be eaten. I would be willing to die to see some asshole just being put in the human slaughterhouse just because people are such assholes, and they have to understand that, just because an animal can't solve the quadratic equation doesn't mean they don't feel pain. And it seems like I'm tying in the Republicans with this, because they're more than likely, I mean, every time I see them, they're dressed in hunting garb. They always have the weapons anyway, and then they just say they use them for animals, and again, they can't shoot straight, so the animal has to suffer on its way out.
Let's hope they stay with that not shooting straight deal. And I say the animals have a chance. Now, for the rest of us and them not shooting straight, yeah, we're screwed.
Well, look, the animals do it to each other, which is bad, but that's no excuse. But like I said, I would almost wish that, they would just start coming down from the skies, and so these people look tasty, and just one of those I told you so. Because if there's one thing, we're going to die anyway, but if we saw something like that, it may give us some gallows humor as we go, so to speak. So,
God damn, Veg, you got to stop sending them that damn bad weed, man. This is not going to fly.
Well, again, it's just a philosophical thought experiment. In a way, it's just a way for my brain to deal with the cruelty. I mean, again, we keep going on two different levels here, and I keep saying, like, most of the Trumpers are these people. Most, I'm not saying there aren't Republicans who care about animals, but it's usually limited to two animals, and that would be the cat and the dog. Right?
There's the only time they're caring about a animal, and I'm speaking for the ones in Carolina, is when it's underneath barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
I
mean,
that's pretty much it.
And where they get this idea that they don't feel pain, I don't. They seem to think like they don't have the same consciousness that we have, and it's quite. This is what I said. I think I mentioned last week is that. The abortion argument
goes. How was
that?
That was an idiot. They're drag racing outside on the street here, and they have these.
Okay.
Have these muffins that kind of sound like explosions, It's
Yeah.
some ridiculous thing. I call them moron mobiles, but they're always like, and this is a residential street. They're drag
That
Right, and
was
they've
racing.
a
got a drag
car?
race, and it's got to be loud, and yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's the kind of shit that that's another thing too. But I want to go back to this idea because I mentioned this. I believe I mentioned this last week. Is that most of the time when we have an abortion argument, and this is going to be obviously big for the Democrats, but the abortion, when you argue with somebody who believes that abortion is the taking of a vested life, I think that the traditional argument, like one says that a woman has control of her body, and then the other says that you're killing a child. I think that I would never argue it in that way. My particular way of arguing this comes about from the ideas of animals. So, for example, and I've said this before, you would see a cow or a horse that had been living 2 or 3 years, they would have a vested consciousness. And what's going on in their brains is going to be a lot more than what's going on with a fetus. Because when you have a fetus, there's very little going on. I mean, even if you ask, I mean, for example, I'll ask you, T-Bone, how old, at what age do you have, I mean, roughly, you don't have to tell me what you remember, but how old were you when you, I mean, right now when you can remember your first memory?
Holy shit, when I could remember my first memory?
I have mine. I know mine. And I was 2.5. I was going down to Florida. I was in a train. I smelled a pill. I asked for a pill. I mean, I would not have remembered except the pillow smelled weird, and that smell, which I can still smell. I was 2.5.
Yeah, I was.
I mean, you can remember your first day at school, right? I mean, that if that right now is your earliest memory, that's your earliest memory.
Oh, my first day of school? Yeah, I still got the
Okay, so you
scars
go
from my
back that
first day of
far.
school.
Veg, how far can you go back with your memory?
I can actually remember being in a crib outside.
2 years of age, maybe?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Probably. That's the various.
Okay,
very
so look
early-
at, let's say the oldest one, maybe 2 years of age. I remember deep into my second year. You definitely remember your first day at school, which that's usually where most people remember, like very close to then, because then you're starting to develop your brain and whatnot. So again, now I'm going to come from the argument that when you have a vested consciousness, when you're consciously, you're communicating in some way, you have an understanding of the world around you. Most of us don't even get to that point until we're 2 or we're 3. We certainly at the age of 1 don't have much going on. At least it's much, much less than what an animal would. So now if you go even back to what a fetus is going through, sure, I mean, it's alive in the sense that cells are alive in our body, or there might be some type of bacteria in our body. But in terms of a vested consciousness that can actually suffer, it could, because, when you're 2 years old, you can suffer, And a pig will let you know if you stick something up its ass. It's going to tell you that it doesn't like it. It will tell you that. And a dog will tell you that it is in pain when you step on its tail. A cat will definitely react when you step on its toes or its tail. So the whole point is, do we have a vested consciousness? Okay, that is the essence of living, is consciousness. Just to say we have a cell that is living, because again, when we say we are a body, we're a body of a lot of different living things. Again, mainly cells, but again, there's 100,000 different bacteria in our body at any one moment. The whole ball game, as a Menon would say, is the suffering factor. And I really believe that's the best way to look at this. So the people who see, the killing as something, as abortion as killing, you'll see, and I don't want to use this as a what about, but they have to understand about the idea of feeling pain and suffering. If you consider, that killing, then what you're doing every day, or what we're doing to animals every day, is actually much, much worse, because there's a lot more neural movement going on at that time. And who would have the arrogance to say that they know? And especially if they're going to say, well, an animal doesn't have a soul, you're going to come about that. If you're going to throw that at me and say, well, a human being has a soul, when you have the arrogance to say something that you know that, and even if you do know that in your mind, you cannot apply that to the next person, because that's not what the next person believes, right? And then it goes back to, for example, this is another Inmendum thought experiment, but I'm going to bring it up, and I'll leave it to both you guys. If you had walked into a Walmart and you saw a box for sale in the toy department called Baby Machine, would you buy it? And it would create real babies. You wouldn't do it, right? And these same people, if you ask them, would they buy that machine, right?
Machine that creates babies.
Right, real babies. Like you say, like, oh, I'll just buy this toy, and all of a sudden it created real babies. And some babies might be normal, some babies might, have Down syndrome, some might have cancer. These same people would say, no, don't do it. I guarantee it. These anti-abortionists would say, no, we could never have a toy like that. But essentially, that very toy that they say, no, we can't have that because that would cause pain and suffering, and we'd have too many kids, and you'd have babies all over the place. Some would be sick. Some would have retardation. It would be horrible, and then you couldn't take care of it, so you can't have that toy. But at the same time, they don't realize that the very act of having sex is a biological experiment, much like that toy. So
yeah.
The question itself, the argument itself between the abortion and anti-abortion, when it gets into that football field where you have, I don't want to kill, and the other one saying that this is my right to have the child, to do what I want with my body, I don't think that gets anywhere. I think it has to come about from an understanding of what vested consciousness is, because that's where the ball game is vested conscious. I'd rather die as a fetus than having somebody throw me into this world with, stage 4 cancer, and then my parents leave me, because that is Baby Machine, ladies and gentlemen. And again, if I brought that up, if I took all 72 million Americans who are anti-abortion, and I said, would you allow Baby Machine? They would say, no way. Just asking that question and that thought experiment, they would say, no way. Without telling them that, hey, this is analogous to what's happening here, because you would ignore what you're defending, because you would understand at that fucking level right then and there that this is what's happening and what it would do, and you would not accept this motherfucking thing if you saw it that way. But because you're so imbued with what Pastor Charlie told you, and you've learned this ever since you're little from your parents, that's all you do is you spit out the same thing, just the way you spit out Hunter Biden's laptop. Okay, I went far on that, but I'm going to leave it to you guys to discuss that.
Oh, that was good.
That
was really good.
Yeah. We're not touching that. All I can say is we're not shopping at your Walmart. Baby making machine. That threw me off right there. I was like, okay, where are we going with this? But I understand where you're coming from on that.
Right. I mean, they're hypocrites at every level, because they don't understand the entirety of what we're talking about here. They have to understand what is consciousness, not simply, life. There's a difference between plant and ow, that fucking hurts.
Yeah.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it goes so much deeper, and it's not being discussed.
Sociopaths had a conscience, Doug.
Yep.
You think about it, sociopathic thinking. I don't believe they have a conscience, and they pretty much have it on display.
And why would they, gentlemen? Because again, most of what these people are saying comes from some simple meme that comes from their local church. It just gets thrown around in the same way that Democrats are going to raise your taxes. Democrats are going to let the border just stay open, and God knows what they'll say about African Americans. They'll just say any kind of shit that doesn't
Who
make
amongst
sense.
us had the full Christian school experience?
I did.
Any of y'all?
I was brought up by nuns, Catholic school.
Oh my God. The
So that
golden
was-
rule. How many
Yeah.
times we get our ass smacked with a ruler?
Oh yeah, Our Lady of Perpetual Severity. You know, it was horrible experience. By the time I was in grade 2, I was convinced that I was damned to hell because I didn't go to mass every Sunday. It was bad, and that was in the 60s. It's probably improved a lot since then, but the education department was the Catholic education board and the Protestant ones, and the Protestant kids had they went on field trips, had great time and everything. We were just I don't know, sort of the way you could imagine A Handmaid's Tale. It was this religious indoctrination from the time you were really small. And I kind of had my doubts about it when I used to go to confession and lie to the priest about sins because I couldn't think of what sins I had actually committed. So I had to make them up.
So y'all got pretty much mental abuse, but got physical abuse along with it. See,
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather had the physical abuse. It was the mental abuse on the grounds of religion. Then it says educational on top of that. I mean, you want to talk about something that would set you back in life? I went through 2 of those. My parents thought that was a great idea. No, it wasn't. It set me back 2 times in my education. I wouldn't recommend it to nobody. I mean, come on. Seriously. I mean, that's about one of the most sorriest things in my life right there, that religion actually even brought up. And they said this is for a better good. I kind of blame it in some ways the way people on their thinking is now. Now, I'm not going to get on people about, their beliefs or what religion they are and stuff, but look at where we are now. I mean, they want to fulfill this prophecy. That's scary. I don't know about y'all, but if you looked into Revelations here lately, that's some scary stuff. Armageddon, I mean, who really wants to be on top of the ash heap afterwards?
This is why I want to show you this.
Thing.
You've got to see this because this relates to what we're talking about here. So I'm going to throw this at you guys for a second. Let's see if I've got Pastor Mark Burns, okay, talking about the Democrats. All right, so let's check this guy out. Who knows what the hell he's saying? Let me get the volume up real high, and here we go.
I'm coming here to declare war on every demonic, demon-possessed Democrat that comes from the gates of hell. I can't hear nobody, America. Are you standing with me? Say yeah. Are you standing with me? Shout yeah. Are you standing with Donald J. Trump? Shout yeah. Are you ready for him to come back?
Well, I know some of you aren't going to agree with me, but this is essentially what Christopher Hitchens was talking about, where religion poisons everything. I mean, there's one thing to have some, belief in a higher power, but to start preaching beyond your own toes seems to be a problem. With me, certainly was with Hitchens, and what's good for Hitchens in that case was good for me. I just this is poison. This is absolute poison.
How is this any different than the Taliban? It's religious extremism, and it's political. You mix the poisons of religion with the poisons of politics, and man, you got a filthy brew of garbage coming out. And I've seen a lot of these guys. One guy out of Texas, I believe, John Hagee. Oh my God, I saw
Oh,
this guy
I've heard
and
his name.
I was just like my mouth was open. I could not believe the crap coming out of this guy's
The
mouth.
poster child for this garbage, man. I mean, yeah, hey, I ain't heard that name in a while, but oh yeah, good
Yeah.
God.
This absolutely gluttonous man going on about you know, uh, accusing everybody that was a Democrat of being demon possessed, and you know, it just gets to the point where what they're doing is they're destroying any faith that rational people have. That they look at that and go, if that's what Christianity is and believing in God, I don't want any part of it. And that's what's gone on for years. I mean, it's in the Catholic Church, it was a little bit different. It was more on a personal level. They didn't really venture very much into politics. But seeing these right wing, crazy Christian preachers in the States, it just kills me. I just don't know how they can get away with this crap and not be taxed. Like, how can they
Yeah.
be preaching politics from the pulpit and not have to pay
Well, it
income
probably
taxes?
goes
Some
back
of
to
these
the
guys
courts.
are pulling in millions
It
and
goes
millions.
back to the way they entrench
Millions
themselves in the states. And this is again the worry is they will get to do what they want to do. They are clearly not the majority, but again, you have minority rule in this country. It's sickening, and again, most of these and they're it's so easy to influence these people because they're so ignorant. And here's another example. This is from the Good Liars. I don't know if you've seen this guy. Okay, this site is replete. The Good Liars on Twitter. It's just replete with this shit. So here we go with this. Let me see if I get this up. Yeah, we're good.
I was there January 6th.
You were at January 6th?
I was there January
Wow.
6th.
Do you think that the other people there were there with Antifa?
Oh, absolutely. There's people there with Antifa.
Let me ask you a question. Why would Antifa want to disrupt the certification of the vote for president who they would support?
Well, no. I just think he was done by the Democrats. The Antifa was by the Democrats.
But they would have wanted Biden to be sworn in eventually.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So why would they have it, stormed the Capitol?
I don't know.
Okay, there you go. I mean, it makes no sense. Of course, we know the guy's just a complete moron. But this is what we're up against, and I don't know what else to do but say, do we need to shame? Again, this goes back to earlier shows when we had Dave on. Should we humiliate these people? I think David basically said in most cases no. I said in some cases I think it has to be done. I think that the Democrats have to have a type of propaganda arm to deal with this at every level. I mean, you can't just depend on what is it, the Lincoln Project, which I think is doing what they can.
Yeah.
But I think you have to have something on a larger scale because we are up against amongst
The Democrats have played too much of the nice guy for so damn long. It's like, talking about unity. You're not going to unify nothing with them, okay? No. I mean, they come here to play the long game. They're devoted to this. They're dedicated to it. If it takes violence, violence it will be. If it takes the cruelty, cruelty it will be. There's no reason anymore. Sometimes you have to take the gloves off and, just punch them in the damn face. But let them know that, hey, we're going to do it out of a certain love and respect. But we will, let's just say, put on your helmet. We're going to kick you in the nuts. All right? That's all there is to it. And that needs to be on display instead of, playing patty cake with them all the time and say, okay, we're fine with this. No, we're not. Look at our nation now. Where's the fine part kick in? I mean, seriously.
Even Biden is still talking about, well, even when he used that term semi-fascist, I don't know why he used semi, but he was going, well, there's many mainstream Republicans that are fine and everything. Well, they all vote as a bloc to do fascist shit, so why not call out the whole party? Why
just call them deplorables?
Why is there this idea that this is some kind of gentleman's club where everybody's going to get along, and you know, they just need to hit back as hard as the Republicans are hitting.
This is something I do want to ask you, guys, and that has to do with, we know that they try to infiltrate the courts. They did. They are infiltrating state government, local government. Now it's the school systems. But there's that last one that I worry about, because this is the one that keeps, especially when we have an African-American defense secretary. Being that they've gone after all the other ones, I'm saying to you, and I haven't seen anything in the news yet about this. Aside from that, we know that Michael Flynn's brother is like a 3 or 4-star general. I don't know. Do you think they are actively, right now, meeting the Republicans, pulling any dirty, tricks within the military? Because that seems to be the last. Because if they're going to pull anything, they still have to deal with the United States military. Because the president of the United States could have a National Guard or the Army out there if he had to, if there were another insurrection, and they would lose. You can't take an F-150 truck with a gun versus an Abrams tank. You will lose, and you will lose quickly. So I think the Republicans know that. I mean, I know this is getting into a realm that we don't want to go, but look, January 6th occurred, so I think it has to be discussed. Is it, in your opinion, reasonable to say that the Republican Party at any level is trying to infiltrate military leadership in any way? Just speculation, but that's what I'm asking you.
Well, if Michael Flynn is any example, they are. I don't know enough about the military to be able to give you an opinion on that, honestly. I think that there's probably a lot of them have infiltrated the military. It wouldn't surprise me. They've taken over every other institution, the courts, and
right. And that was my point. They've taken over others, so why would they not? And then even the military has kind of said, Veg, that like we're worried about our recruiting. So it sounds like they're dealing with something out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of
what
influences
really bothers
there.
me.
That's for damn sure. There's a lot of influences in the military. I mean, everybody has their political stance there and all. Now, them
and guys like Baldock, Don Baldock, he was a big military guy and this and that. I can't think of him shutting up.
Well, there's some of your influences right there. I mean, monkey see, monkey do. Those are the ones right there. If anything, will be influencing the military. Now, as for the military, I would say, God, there's going to be another insurrection. You do realize this.
That's what I'm worried about. But, I would think, at least, again, I'm only speculating, that there would be insurrections at state capitals rather than the national capital.
Yes,
and where they would pick those, because there you could cause a lot of problems, especially in liberal states like, Michigan. Well, Michigan's not that liberal, but places where they almost did it. Excuse me, they could do. They're not going to do it in Texas as long as Abbott's in there. But I could see them causing problems in that way, because even in New Jersey, look, I live in a very conservative county. I would be their main meal if they knew I was doing this, that kind of thing.
You want to talk about conservative? You don't get more conservative than Florida here. I mean, these nut jobs. I wouldn't put it past DeSantis of putting his own.
But mainly central and northern Florida, right? Southern Florida is still more or less Democratic, right? I mean, maybe with the exception of Miami.
It's a mixture of both and all. I mean, personally,
it was close the last election. It was still pretty close.
It was close, but back to the military deal. I don't see it. In some ways, I don't see them infiltrating, but so much. Now, the militias, they got their whole game going on with the militias.
No doubt about that.
They're the dangerous one. I mean, coming
But they
to the
can't.
militias
They
and the
can't
military,
beat the
militias
United
first.
States military. I think that the Republicans, because remember, there are people like that because that's what Michael Flynn wanted. You know, I mean, look,
Yeah.
example. Let's look at this for a second. Let's go back to the web. Now, this guy is going to be sentenced in October. Now, they say up to 30 days. This is the first charge, because he did not fulfill his duties to, comply with a subpoena. You know who this is, and he's a real schmuck. But let's just, it's just 12 seconds. But this is what we are dealing with. These people are they're rabble-rousers.
This is what happens in the last days of the dying regime. They will never shut me up. They'll have to kill me first. I have not yet begun to fight.
Who the fuck does Bannon think he is? I mean, really? I have not yet begun to fight. Who the fuck? Who the fuck does he think he is to be able to use that?
It was satisfying to see him in handcuffs, though.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? In his two shirts.
They got him down to 2 shirts now. I thought he was at least
look,
guy.
I don't know how many days he's going to serve, but this guy needs to be sent to Rikers. Even if it's 20 days, just get him in. He doesn't want to serve 1 hour. And again, he's in bigger trouble with this thing with taking the money from.
They haven't even done the citizen part yet for him, have they?
No. It's I think it's October, the middle of October, somewhere in the middle, late October. Then he'll be sentenced. And because it's coming up very, very quickly, and he does not want to serve. I imagine he's going to get louder and louder as the weeks go by. And who knows? And again, he doesn't have anybody to pardon him this time. This is something out of Trump's realm. And by the way, we haven't even really talked about
anybody's realm. This is on a state level. How in the fuck is a pardon going to help him? This is state level shit. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't know unless he's got something up his sleeve. Because again, he doesn't want to serve it a minute. I mean, these people are candy asses. But to go back now, because I know we're going back into what we were talking about with Cannon. This is another thing. The DOJ appealed, her ruling. You've got a special master coming up. She's giving him until November 30th. Gentlemen, what do you feel about the 11th Circuit? If you had to bet one way or another, again, complete speculation. How are they going to defend what Eileen Cannon's saying?
I was reading something on Cannon. I was trying to pull it back up here. That there was a sentencing back in. Matter of fact, it was in Illinois, and she issued issued out an 18-month sentence for a sentence that should have been 3.5 years, and she only issued out 18 months. I'm trying to find the article now, but other than that, sorry, Brian, what was your question again?
Just speculation on what's going to happen with the 11th Circuit Court. This is actually within Clarence Thomas's jurisdiction. Now, these are Trump-appointed federal judges, but there have been federal judges where even Trump couldn't get his way when he tried to challenge the voting because he had no proof. They could not bring the goods. Giuliani could not bring the goods to the courts. They had no proof that Dominion's machines were this or that. They were in definite trouble because if you can't prove it, you better not say it. And the attorneys themselves are in trouble.
How many judges did he nominate in the 11th district? That's what I was trying to find.
Well, I don't know. All I know is 6 out of 11 are Republican, and I think
6.
Definitely 6. 6 out of 11. So you've got to have one of them is going to be swayed, and you got to hope that the other ones are going to go the right way. But I don't see
just one.
Whatever is going to happen, she's just so partisan. She's not really a judge. She's just a facilitator for Trump. They're going to have some cockamamie excuse for why she's right. It can't go any other way. So the idea is that the 11th Circuit Court would probably, you would hope, side with the DOJ. But let's just look at the continuum. Things haven't looked good. So let's just play the hopeful optimist and say that, okay, so they're okay with the DOJ's appeal. Now they only have one other court to go to, and we know what court that is. And then the next speculation.
Do you see the outcome being any different?
Well, it's either going to be the circuit court is going to, well, it could probably be three things. One, they could make a decision. They could say, okay, stay or whatever, and then it could then go up to the Supreme Court. You know that Trump would appeal, and there's where things get sticky because, again, these are all, as I mentioned last week, these are all Federal Society judges, which scares the shit out of me because, again, we keep hoping that it'll work out. But look what happened to Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
Right, Veg? I mean, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, they promised that, that was precedent. But look what happened.
Yeah. There's still talk about packing the court. I don't know whether that's a good idea. It's not somewhere...
Or how you can do it. I don't mind. I'll do anything that'll help us win the way things are going. But how do you pack the court without getting 60 senators? I don't know what... Again, this is all like hopeless. And this is the stuff when Dave used to be on, because Dave would say, goes back 4 years when Trump first became president. He's saying, well, look what will happen with the courts and with in the Senate. Eventually, they're not going to go with Trump. And I said all along, only because I was a pessimist, that it's not going to happen. And then Dave, of course, 2.5 years ago, Dave was more even pessimistic than I was, and he's got it right, or he had it right. It didn't look. Essentially, basically, I think what Dave was saying is that this is probably lost. That we are. And I don't like saying that either because I don't like giving up. But
nobody likes giving up. But at the same time, if you really look at it, the way things have been going, I mean, yeah, it's bad to say, but I see it going to the Supreme Court definitely. I really do.
Yeah, and then again, what does Gorsuch... Again, for some reason, the Gorsuch thing just bugs me because... it shouldn't bug me any more than Amy Coney Barrett, right? I always mess up her middle name. Not that it matters, but, Coney Barrett and Alito. And we know where Clarence Thomas... I mean... So I have no faith in the Supreme Court. I think when they decide to go with Eileen Cannon, that's when I say, gentlemen, we just better hope that there's a landslide for the Democrats during the 2022 elections. And I don't know, Judge. I just doubt we can win, only because of the gerrymandering. I don't think we can win Congress.
So then what's going to happen is the next 2 years they're already talking about wanting to impeach Biden for what? It's all going to be time.
Well, they can do that, but it won't go anywhere. But they'll do it anyway. Just talk shit.
That's pretty much with Cannon. It's not going anywhere with her nonsense of what she's doing down here. I mean, how far can this go? I mean, judicially, how far can
how an issue of national security, how the DOJ has to listen to this Trump-appointed judge that was apparently sworn in by McConnell after Trump lost the election. And yet the hypocrisy of these GOP people, they didn't want to give Merrick Garland a hearing because it was within a year of the election. Right. And meanwhile, they're appointing judges right up to the last second, and they're just the hypocrisy. I don't know how.
Well, not only that, not only is
they put it, friend, 9 days. Yeah. She was in 9. Yeah.
But think of it this way: here you do have the hypocrisy, but usually when we think of branches of government, Anyway, and you can go into levels of government too, because that's going to be a problem. But the branches of government were there to protect each other, to act as, obviously a check and a balance, checks and balances. But now there is no check and balance because they're controlling the judicial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
They don't have the executive, but in a certain way, it becomes that way. With the Senate. I mean, it's really, really hard to say with that. I don't know. I think when you have 2 out of 3, with the legislative branch, it's like one. I don't know. Maybe it's a tie until 2024. But again, you get into this thing as you were saying about the state governments with the state. Because they have to be voted in, I suppose, in most cases, the attorney generals of each state. These guys and gals are going to get in, and you worry about Michigan. Essentially, I think there's only one thing left, and I think Biden basically said it, is that our asses have to get out there and vote like crazy, because
vote like your life depends on it.
Right, and how...
Because it does.
Despite all the bullshit that's going on, that they won't let you get a drink of water within 150 feet of this and that. They won't let you mail it in. They'll have one drop box in one county in all of Texas, that kind of thing. They're making everything so difficult. How do you fucking win? And then you have a state like North Carolina, when you have
to win
50-50 Democrat and Republican, and then the Republicans have 80% or 70% of the representation in Congress from that state.
Yep.
Ohio is the same thing. Now, Ohio is really turning into a really red state, but you're talking maybe 54-46, but it's not 54-46 when it comes to it's such a sham. And we've talked about South Dakota, North Dakota, Utah, all of that shit. And God forbid you had, DC considered a state, or Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
They'd lose their pants if that happened. So this is why, again, getting back to the original article that we were talking about, there's just... It's a frightening future. It is
was talking
frightening.
About needed some of that, what she call it, big dick energy.
Right, and...
You hear about that crap?
Yeah, and you see how now they're going to go some pseudo-sexual thing.
Yeah, but
it's their way to get into people's head.
Right.
It's such
but
a stupid fucking
here,
comment.
Okay? But the Democrats are groomers, right? Yeah, we got big dick energy. There you go. That's a strong one. But Democrats are groomers. Gotcha.
Well, I didn't know now this was going to be a boner contest when it comes to politics, and it's sickening. It's frightening, and what was it? It was funny. It was something that I think it was Lauren Boebert. The word was wanton, like wanton violence. Or
wanton.
She said wonton, with an O instead of an A.
GD Barbie strikes again.
We went to high school. I would even guess if somebody read something from high school, they would say that because it didn't have that first vowel wasn't an O, that they would kind of figure out that something's different. So
hey, now remember, she did say she was going to look into it and check it on out. I'd love to hear her after response to this.
Wonton killers, they're so dangerous. You get them in your soup, and all it takes is one. You're dead.
Now, again, all of this is humorous. I show you all of the good liars on Twitter, all these handles. It's very, very funny when you watch it because it's absurd. It's absurd to watch Donald Trump act the way he does coming down the escalator in 2015, the things that they all say, the things that Bannon says, give me liberty or give me death. It's just, who the fuck are you? Anyway, as much as that can be funny on a certain level, it really is frightening. All that talk and bullshit does lead to January 6th. And as you said, T, we are going to have some other insurrection, and people are going to die, just like in Uvalde. It's from these people who are so intransigent You can't get through. They're unassailable, and
you're not going to get through to them. And the thing of it is, what really concerns me is when they actually start seeing blood pour on the ground. And I'm like, how did this
if it were their own, maybe they would
the
actually
last
get
4
it.
years was about. I mean, yeah, too little, too late. It will happen. But they're not going to care or realize it because some magical caravan's carrying people over the border. But when blood starts spilling here, too little, too late. There's no need even talking about it, Dan.
Right,
And
I think you can only, it can really only lead to that. I mean, you look at certain points of history, the Civil War, the initial revolution. One might call the 60s revolution because there was blood. But I guess
I think it's going to be worse than that.
Because there was some way, because you had some type of idea that you could communicate between the parties, which is why, of course, we saw Republicans saying, no to Richard Nixon at some point. They just couldn't. You couldn't rationalize
whatsoever. They're not going to be convinced whatsoever until they start seeing the body count and going, oh, well, we thought that couldn't happen here in this nation.
Well, again, I think that it has to be their bodies. Now, how, if they're going to pull that, how are you going to get them? Again, this goes back to the military. And again, I think people like Michael Flynn think like that. I mean, they're thinking this thing through. Like, okay, Don, because he's going to call him Don or Mr. whatever he wants to call him, and Bannon, they still have the nuclear weapons. I mean, they still have the tanks. We have to infiltrate the military. I mean, this is again, and I'm not saying that I'm right. I am not Nostradamus, but I'm usually right on when it comes to Republicans and where they go with the shit. And we haven't heard anything in the news about this. And I have no information whatsoever, But again, if I were thinking like a Republican, I think I understand where they're coming from, not in any good way. This is what they're thinking, because they don't want power in 2024. They want it now. Trump, as they say, he said, I don't want to leave because he likes being boss. It's great that he can just pardon people because now he can make them do anything. Nunes knew all along that he was going to be pardoned. Jim Jordan knew he would be, especially Roger Stone. I mean, Jesus Christ, he could have done anything.
God.
So here's where we are, folks. I mean, this is where we go back to the conversations with David with this and how he got really pessimistic with it. And again, why it'd be nice to, please, if if Dave can just get better, because again, we need to get into that end zone, and either way, we just have to carry the torch, so to speak. But
are you referring to a pessimistic end zone here?
Well, no, I want to win, but I'm saying right now.
I just want you to clarify.
You when you read my email, both of you, you can sense there was that immediate anger. My pants were on fire that night. I couldn't get around it. I mean, it's because everything that I'm thinking in my brain that really I shouldn't be thinking was happening.
I was surprised with all the colorful metaphors you used in there that you actually did in the complete sentence, and I'm like,
yeah, well, there were some fragments there almost, I think, too.
Upset this evening.
I was so angry, and I need to, and I appreciate being able to email you guys, and ladies and gentlemen out there. I mean, I think that is the wonderful thing about having friends who understand, who are empathetic. I was extremely angry, and I can't just do nothing. I have to vent it, and this is why the Divided We Stand on Facebook is important. It's you can commiserate. I mean, look, if you're going to be going down the Titanic, at least you're in the band. The band goes down together, and that's what you have to do, and we have to do it.
There are more of us than them, and that's what we have to remember. And
I'll be frank with you. Speaking from like what's going on in Canada right now with this people who know what's happening here. I'm thinking that Biden, this is going to sound maybe immature of me, gentlemen. I'm thinking Biden should behind the scenes, really think about making contact with people from Germany, I mean, the governments of Germany, and with France, and with Canada, and saying, look, if things get really bad and there is some type of split in the military, we got to do something like we did back in 1776. We need the French to help us out. And same thing during, I think, because I think there's some people, again, I'm not Canadian, Veg, but I think there's some people in Canada who would get it. If you were in the military and you're 20 years of age, you might say, okay, hold it. This is worth it here. Because I can't live on a border with crazy shit right next to Canada. I'll be willing to go down there and fight with my brothers.
Absolutely.
I mean, which is why, by the way, you see so many Canadians going to Ukraine, and even Americans going to Ukraine and fight. So it's, I think he's got to perhaps. I mean, I think there has to be something in the military plan, or something in the plan that, you know, if things get dark here, we can't just do it on our own. And let's just hope that asshole doesn't ask Putin, you know, so all of a sudden you've got, I mean, this is getting really crazy, but, you know, all of a sudden, could you imagine where you have like Russian troops and well, China doesn't like Trump, but Russia, you know, hooks up with the Republicans, and then we've got Canada and France. I mean, then you say that fuck this shit, you know, like this is just, because Canada can't survive if you're going to have an autocratic state.
No, we can't. And quite frankly, if America does turn fascist, I think Canada's chances of being invaded just went up 100 times. It would be over in a day. Let's face it, Canada's military is a joke.
Yeah, we're not playing a hockey game where you could win that one.
So, but
it's a
we've
war.
always, no, we exist with the Americans because we've been friends with the Americans for so many years. There's no animosity there, but I've heard, you know, on the right in the States, people calling us a socialist country, which is quite hilarious actually, as we're every bit as capitalist as you guys, except maybe with the exception of having universal health care. But really, we're just America Junior. I mean, there's
I remember in college, Veg, we had a goalie who was Canadian. I think it was a goalie, yeah, and his dad was like a multimillionaire, and he'd fly him right in and out in his private jet, you know, in northwestern Ohio, and like it just was so weird. Like at least that's what I was told. He's like really wealthy. So yeah, I mean, and there are oil magnates in Calgary and you know, I mean, or Alberta. I mean, come on, but still, I would think that again, this is just going really far with this, that Canada would understand it, and I think that if it ever did get that bad, if I were president, which would not happen, I would start making my calls and saying, okay, we're like as NATO, and we got to see the Republicans as a threat to NATO. You know, because you know that how Trump felt about NATO. Oh, who's here?
He was ready. He was ready to leave NATO. Yeah.
We got 2 people in the green room. We got 2 cameras, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna see what happens. Is that you, T-Bone?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I have 2 of you. Oh, well, the other one's frozen. I don't know what happened there.
I mean, I don't know what's happening.
Oh, I froze last week. There we go. We got you in deep thought there. Let me see if I can throw another one in here. That's actually kind of.
But you were playing, so
you're called T-Bone 2 now. Oh, that was T-Bone 2. We got T-Bone 1. Hold on.
Go back until you start seeing movement.
No, nothing's moving. I mean,
all right, go back. Yeah, everything froze on my end. I'm sitting there going, guys.
This is what happened to me last week. Let me see what I can do. I'm throwing in every T-Bone I can find here. Let's see, T-Bone 1. Here's T-Bone 1.
All right, try it again.
And now we're going to go T-Bone 2.
Hopefully 2 is better.
And here he is.
So you can
Hold
hear
on.
me.
Hold on. I know what to do. Hold on. I think I know what to do. Hold it. If I can just. I think I can do it. Hold on. I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try it. Hey, that one shouldn't work, but the next one should work. Here we go. No, it's not going. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make a separate one for you. We'll make a T-Bone. Hold on, let me just add something here. Now, let's go to T-Bone.
T-Bone. Nice.
I can't get T-Bone in. There you go.
There you go.
Hey, this guy over here, he's an imposter. Get rid of him.
That's all I can do right now. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Unless I completely change the scene here. I don't know. Maybe I can. Hold on for a second. Maybe I can get all of us in there. Hold on. Let's get this guy out. No, we don't. Let's get this guy. And we'll get this guy. And we'll get this guy. All right.
Oh my god.
I can't get the other one out. Hold on. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to knock it out. Here. Boom. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to change it. Anyway, we're getting close to the end of the show here, by the way. So, and I do want to say, before we even finish up here, I mean, I do greatly appreciate, as much as I told you, I feel really down about Dave not getting to the finish line here with us right now, to have two people who are really helping this very, very small channel. And thanks to both of you for mentioning Divided We Stand. Okay, but
hey, we both have small channels.
You guys are still like big compared to this one. This is just a coterie of, intelligent people who enjoy talking about politics and understand.
It's great.
I've
enjoyed the show since before it existed. Actually, I liked the show you and Paul did too before that, and I think I've been a subscriber to you, Brian.
Yeah, you go way back to the iGeneralist, which was the Head in the Box channel. But we go back, and I remember Paul contacted you, I believe, and we were going to have you on the Reality Report one night. I remember that.
I think you and Paul had a falling out or something.
It was. Well, yeah. I mean, it was. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was a falling out. We're still good friends. I mean, I don't want to get too personal. Aside from that,
Don't go there.
It was no. It was impossible, given the situation politically that's happening right now in this country and how I felt about it. That you have to land someplace, in my opinion, and I couldn't continue without that same type of and that's nothing against Paul. Paul was great. Paul's he's brilliant. He's an intelligent guy. But I mean, there were other things involved, but I couldn't continue that channel. And then above that, now Veg would know this because, not to say you wouldn't, T-Bone, but when it was the Head in the Box channel, it got bigger because of Guy McPherson. We went from 150 subscribers from iGeneralist we got to a high of 11 or 1,200. We started losing some, but it's still over 1,000, but it's all Guy McPherson. It wasn't anything that we did per se. It was an interesting show, but if it had just been us, we still would have had 140, 150 subscribers, 200. I don't know. But it wouldn't have been much. But it was because of Guy McPherson. And Veg knows, and I know Veg knows, is that people were having on, what was her name? The Natural Progressive. And we started getting a lot of Jimmy Dore people in the chat room. And the chat room was not getting along with me because I was the pragmatic guy. And they were basically far to the left. I think
yeah.
Evil Yoda was part of, and again, Evil, if you're watching, I mean, you're left of where I am. I'm not saying that's bad. It's just that group in Head in the Box, they were having, constant disagreements with me, and I couldn't see it continue. And I saw it was going to happen in this election, where Dave and I both said this, and I discussed this before we even had the first show in Divided We Stand. I said, look, we both want Bernie Sanders, but it's not going to happen. We will vote for him in the primaries. If he doesn't make it, we have to make a pragmatic decision. And here's Dave, who was, far left in the 60s. He was protesting. He was a journalist, and the mob was after him at one point in time. He had dealt with, shootings while he was trying to report. Dave has been through it all, and he's been on the left. And he knew the pragmatism kind of thing that had to go. And you can't just say, everybody's a billionaire out there, and that's what you got to stop. And there's so much involved in politics. The climate change thing. Everybody was, who the fuck is for the climate change? I mean, none of us. I wasn't. I told you I was doing this shit a long time ago, but I kept saying to the people in the chat room, you cannot attack this problem by simply just saying you're part of Extinction Rebellion. You have to, get involved with the politics of it, because Putin's not going to change unless you do. You have to get, you're not negotiating with yourself, right?
No.
You're not you have to negotiate with another party. You have to do something and you have to give it. That's how this works. And everybody was so idealistic. And I realized at some point I can't negotiate with that. I can't negotiate when I'm working with somebody when it's their state of tune is not for this situation. Again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I knew that this was headed to coup. I said this in the Reality Report. This is a coup long before it was a coup. It's pretty easy to figure out a coup, especially when you've been through one in Russia, because I was there and I saw the same bullshit. It didn't take much.
You saw this You saw this up close. I didn't realize it until
I saw the tanks. I saw how people reacted to this shit. I saw the attacks on Gorbachev. I was trying to get like a chant going for Gorbachev as an American in Red Square and around Red Square, and everybody was, meanwhile, first of all, they all hate Gorbachev. They're for Yeltsin at the time, but I said something's really fucked up here because, you wanted to stop the communists, but it was true. They couldn't handle the freedom, and I see this same bullshit. It's just it's bullshit. There was no sense of pragmatism, which you could get out of people in this country back then. So I saw this happening, and it was hard to watch. And again, I said, you can go back to the Hedenbach channel right now, and you'll talk. There's a coup thing right around 2016. I know one of them was early 17. I said this is a coup because you didn't have to tell me it was a coup. It was a coup. It was this is how it works. And again, I kept going over this. Yeah, it was a falling out with the channel. It was a falling out with the person I'm working with. A good friend, a great friend, a wonderful person, but some things are not negotiable here. I can't. I'm not of the business world. Number one, I don't do that. I don't. I don't want to get into this shit. But anyway, the long story. I had to fire myself, and I told Paul. I said, I can't do this. I'm gonna create a political channel. I'm not working out with this thing here. We have all these subscribers.
You was being held hostage there.
I was held hostage, but it was to myself because the worst thing that happened. And Ben, you're gonna think I'm crazy. The worst thing that could have happened to that channel was having Guy McPherson on. Guy, and I like Guy. Guy, for all you can say about Guy McPherson, some people don't agree with it. Guy was always honest, and he was willing to come on, and that's all I cared about. He was honest. I had never had a problem with Guy McPherson. I had some. He's essentially. An anarchist, I suppose, or something like that, or nihilist. But he was a great guy. He was honest, and that's all I cared. If you're honest with me, that's fine. But that was the worst thing that happened to me, because it was clear that those subscribers were not coming from any one thing. We said they liked what we were saying, but it's got to come from the show. Like, Veg, what you've got going is that, you've got a brand, and T, you're doing that too. You've got, a very loyal base, albeit, it's not 1,000 for either of you, but you got a loyal base. And that's what I should have done in the beginning. And the channel was all over. In the beginning, it was kind of cool. It was just, I would just do like videos like a generalist. I would, this video was about how to do this on a computer, or how to do that, and what about Russia. I just let it go that way. But it's, it became untenable. It was like I could breathe. I could fucking breathe. And again, look, I just dropped 800 subscribers.
You should be able to do stuff you enjoy. It sounds like pretty much. Now, to me, it sounds like you were just pretty much miserable there.
I was absolutely miserable. Paul knew it. And there were, look, there were just things you had to deal with, and I think we did a good job. Paul's a wonderful moderator. He really, he's so well read. I think if the channel had been different, and if we had done it in a different way, get kind of out of politics completely, it might have worked. The whole thing with climate change, I don't care what anybody says, it becomes political. It had to become political. You can't just do the Extinction Rebellion thing and just say, I'm going to protest in London and expect this thing to just catch fire all around it. So was it Norton, the guy we had on a lot. He was really brilliant with, I keep throwing that adjective around, with politics. Alex Norton. Alex Norton was part of Extinction Rebellion. He would glue himself to some banks in Austin, or not maybe in Austin, but in Texas. He walked the walk. But again, everybody was saying, well, Brian is this and Brian is that. And I literally, they were just saying, like, he doesn't understand that, there's the billionaires and such that are controlling everything. I mean, yeah, I understand the rich. Yeah, the rich people do that shit, and it sucks. But there is this thing called political forces, and sometimes they lose. And sometimes there's some rich people, like Soros, who's not a schmuck like, Tesla, Musk, or whatever, or Bezos.
Elon.
Why couldn't people see this, And it was just like fucking Jimmy Dore. So everybody we're fucking talking to saying, well, look what Jimmy Dore says about Biden. He's just the same. No, he's fucking not. He's not.
Nowhere near it. Nowhere near it.
So anyway.
I've heard that a lot. There's no difference between Republicans and Democrats. And I know people, Americans that are supporting the Green Party, and I can't understand throwing your vote away, because that's what it is. And you've got to look at the system where you're in. You can't, ideally, maybe you would like the Greens to be the government, but you still can't make equivalency between the Democrats and Republicans. Republicans, especially now, are outright fascists. They don't believe in democracy. They believe might makes right, and that's just the way it is. So you've got to compromise. Sure, I would like to see Bernie become president and everything, of course, but the fact that he was kind of screwed by the Democrats, and I realize that, and the powers that be, but you can't just all of a sudden say, well, throw it all away then, and let's let these crazy...
I'm not so sure he would have won anyway, as much as I would have voted for him. I'm trying to put myself out of it. I don't even know that he would have won. I don't think he would have won in 2020. I just don't think he would have won. I think you need the African-American vote, because the African-American vote is somewhat centrist Democrat, and if they don't come out, I don't think they're going to look at some bald Jewish guy and say, that's the guy I want.
Yeah, that's far Lisa saying right there.
And I'm not blaming the African American voter. I'm just saying that that's the reality. And when people don't understand that this is a fucking war here. You know, how did the fucking Reds win against the whites in Russia? You had like a total army of like 15,000 or 8,000 in the beginning, or even less in the. They had to like do this and do this and do this and do this, and they eventually won. But you can't assume that Bernie was going to win. You can't.
How long were you over there in Russia?
Well, I went there. I don't know if I went 8 or 9 times. I lost count because they don't stamp your passport. You know, they won't do that.
Really?
I would go. My longest trip was 3 weeks. I started in '90, and then I was going for about a period of 3 years, 3 times a year, and I was trying to get a business going, importing Russian artwork. I don't know if I have any. It's like mafia business there. You know, it was. You know, I would go. I remember, guys. I was. A guy who was going to supply me with these good, what are called lacquer boxes. You know, and they're just gorgeous. And I set this thing up with him 3 weeks before, 2 weeks before. I was calling him, boom, boom. So I got into Moscow, and he was a nice enough guy and all. And he acted like he didn't know me. He was like, well, a Japanese guy bought all of our stuff, like as if, like one guy from Japan knew I was buying. And I was just a guy with peanuts, I wasn't a big businessman or anything like that. And then I realized that, this is like mafia shit. It's funny. I asked a kid one time, forgive me if I said this before, but it was on the streets of Moscow. It was a 16-year-old kid. He was selling bananas. It was just 91 or 92. And, they sell bananas. They sell little puppies on the street. It's depressing. But anyway, I said to the kid, what do they do? What do you have to do, to make money here? And he says, well, they shake me down. And he said they charge me. I have to pay like $10 or $15 in American dollars. This is back then, just to be able to stand there. And then I realized that I can't, especially somebody who I didn't even know. I mean, I graduated with a degree in business, but I didn't know how to deal with import and export with Russian stuff. I was just bringing stuff back, and I was trying to get things started. And then I realized that this is like the wild, wild west over here. I can't, I saw like a mouth on the ground somewhere. I don't know if it was just dentures or somebody was killed. I said, I don't even know what I'm dealing with in this fucking country. I don't know. It's impossible to deal with. You couldn't wrap your head around it. Like, how could it? You see tanks coming down the street during the coup. I mean, and by the way, I want to mention this because I got there on the 18th. The coup in Russia started on the 19th in '91, August, and I got there that night. And my friend picked me up at the airport. My friend had to do something that night, so his wife and her kid was going to take me to Red Square to meet their husband. And as we were approaching Red Square, there was like this military area, and there was this gate opening up. And I said to her, and I don't even know why I said it. I swear, I don't even know why I fucking said it. I just saw one military guy opening up a gate, and there was like trucks there. And I said to her, and again, I said, why are they opening this? And she said to me, I don't know, I've never seen this before. And that was at around, 8, 9 o'clock at night. We stayed there till midnight. A guy, they whistle off. There's only like 3 or 4 people in Red Square at, 12 midnight. And I saw a guy drunk. He was drinking his bottle. And then a policeman took him off and he said, your freedom's over tonight. And of course, the next morning, that was the coup. And then the guy had balls. This drunk, he said, you know what? And he held up his bottle. And he said, my freedom's in this bottle. And that guy, the military guy, was pissed. He just took him off, and that was it. But little did I know the next day, that's where everything started coming out. And I realized the significance of it because I called my father up. I remember that morning because that was when the morning of the coup. They woke me up from a dead sleep. And I called my father, and the Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles, were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers in a preseason game, and I was asking him how they were doing, and we're just worried about you. But yeah, he talked about the game just a little bit over the phone, and it kind of set me at ease just talking about the Eagles. But my friend's wife said, you got to realize what you're dealing with here, Brian. This is a pooch. And at the time, I didn't know what pooch meant in Russian because I just didn't come across it. And then she got across to me about, it's a coup, and they're trying to take over. And I said, what the fuck, And I think that gave me a reality about the political world. Like, this can happen. This fucking shit. And then you hear that the fucking tanks that night. I can remember, the sound of it, and you can feel a tank. It's going up a street. I remember the street was Rustav Yeli, which is not the middle of Moscow, but it's a famous Italian architect that helped build Russia, the cities. And I said, this is fucked up. They're fucking military tanks coming through, and all you saw, for all the eye could see, that next morning it was just tanks and tanks and tanks. And I realized it was an important time. And I went into the American embassy, and I could see all these nervous reporters, like they're freaking out. And I didn't freak out because I don't like freak out. I freak more out here than I do. But it changed my world, guys. It changed my world because I knew what could happen.
Traumatized, dude. That's all there was to it. I mean, you were traumatized for that, and you're actually, in some ways, what you're trying to explain to us, you're starting to see similarities here in America to that.
Yeah, I mean, it was like John Reed's 10 Days That Shook the World. I mean, I remember, because John Reed is buried in the Kremlin Wall. I kind of thought, like, wow, this is like, this thing's going to turn into 10 Days That Shook the World, and I'm going to be here for this shit. Because there weren't any fucking Russians that night at midnight in there. There was like a drunk. Who hangs out at Red Square at midnight? Very few people. And I've been thinking about that.
Were you there?
Pardon me? I was there, but I'm an American there. There wasn't even a Russian fucking there, except for some military people. And I'm thinking, like, hold it, that was ground zero. It was like being right there when the bomb drops. Like the guy on that movie where he rides the bomb, whatever. I forget. But anyway, again, I think it was an awakening, guys. It was just an awakening that, I'd never seen anything like that. But now, as you were just mentioning, I have this, it's like an omen. It's just like an omen. This is happening. And then when I saw January 6th, that's when I flipped out. That bothered me. And
it bothered quite a few people. Now, some people went into denial, like, "Oh no, this is not happening." It's like, "Oh yeah, that's a damn coup happening." Oh no, it's BLM, it's Antifa. I'm like, get the fuck out of here with that shit.
Joey remembers as a student in '91, I was teaching at Cherry Hill, and he knows the car I was driving when I came back. That was a fucked up time. But like I say, January 6th, for me, if I had to look at any one moment in life where I was angriest, guys, January 6th. I mean, I'll never forget that day, even more so than 9/11, and I was angry then. I remember I was right here doing the COVID thing with my colleagues, and somebody said, "You checking out what's going on?" And I went into the other room over here, I put on CNN, and I knew immediately what the fuck that was. Because all you do is see the. I said, I know exactly what's going on. I said, get the fucking machine guns out. Do something. And I thought, well, maybe the military would do it without Trump's, approval. But
that was so weird. I watched it all live, and I kept thinking, well, where's the National Guard? Why aren't they there?
Yeah, why aren't they there?
And it was going on for hours. And I was just sitting with my mouth open in front of the computer. I couldn't believe that they were allowed to do this. That, I think you came so close to losing everything on January 6th. And if that sort of thing were to happen again, and it was a trial run. It was a trial run for a coup. They're not going to give up without a fight. And I think it's going to, whether it's a legal coup or, it's when they control so much and the minority controls so much, you're frustrated. How do you change the system to make it more fair? Because unless you get rid of the Electoral College and all these undemocratic ways about U.S., I cannot see how you're going to survive as a country. I just don't. Certainly not as a democracy, a modern democracy. What is going to happen if the next coup succeeds?
Right. That's the whole point. Or again, if they do it at the state level and they just kind of eat away and they say, okay, you're not going to win this state because we decide that. I want to also mention, guys, as I really do have to shut down, I do want to speak to you guys just for a couple minutes after the show, if that's okay. Just a couple things, and I'm not trying to hide things from folks, but it's just something personal I wanted to mention. And then I'll sign off. But listen, I want to thank, first of all, you on the air, T-Bone and Veg. I appreciate this, and I mean that. I really mean that. I want to continue doing this, and even when David gets back, not touch wood, because we all need each other. Even if we lose this thing, we'll go down losing together rather than... there's nothing worse, goes back to that 9th configuration, nothing worse than going out alone. It is frightening. So I'm going to sign off.
We all do need each other, but I'm not touching no wood. Sorry.
So I'm gonna sign up, but I do want to speak with you guys for a few minutes, and then...
yeah, sure.
And then... we'll do that. All right. So thank you, everybody. We'll be on next week. Touch wood. and thank you. You know what I mean? Thank you. And it was only like 14 of us left out there, but that's good enough for me. So, all right. Good night, everybody. See you.
Night.